And when I say listen to silence, keep watching what your mind does. It seeks out stillness, and it feels for that moment that even with these things, there's that stillness and that peaceful quiet.
You're listening to Find the Good News, episode 64, The Ocean and the Shore, featuring Mary Vaughan. Find the Good News is produced by Parker Brand Creative Services, a branding agency that thinks sideways, pushes forward, and gets your brand up. See what else we do at parkerbrandup.com. Thanks for tuning in to Find the Good News. In this episode, I'm sharing my lovely conversation with Mary Vaughan. Mary's doing a good work in the classroom and acting as an agent of positive change that I feel is much needed. I'm so thankful that she said yes, and I'm certain that you'll believe in her mission when you're done listening. Next week, we launch episode 65. This episode will feature the first of our Beacon series, which will feature conversations with good people doing good works in communities far from the space that I would traditionally call home. In episode 65, I get to share my conversation with former senior Border Patrol agent Jen Budd. Jen left the Border Patrol in 2001 and has since evolved into an immigrant rights activist. What she shares isn't conjecture. It comes from real-world experience and provides perspectives from actual eyes on the ground. She was gracious with her time, and I think you'll get a lot from her signal. The week after that, I share my conversation with Dave Evans, chef and owner of Luna in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and the man that kicked off Chuck Fest. Dave really peels back the canopy and invited me into his universe. I really enjoyed myself in that space, and I can't wait to share it with you. I'm putting all my love and effort into the Good News mission, and I hope you found something that helps you or touches you as you interact with this passion project. If you want to help me on this mission, visit patreon.com/findthegoodnews. For $3.33 a month, you'll continue to enjoy the Good News signal while helping me send it out to even more ears than before. Plus, you'll get access to the Patrons-Only podcast, The B-Sides. If you're into sneak peeks into the minds of the team that brings you the good news, then this Patreon package is for you. That link is patreon.com/findthegoodnews. I really do thank you for your support. There's nothing else to say. It's time to center yourself, cycle up your breathing, lower your heart rate, let thoughts and emotions arrive, then kindly leave. Now, press play on a little good news. Breathing. Such a simple action, often taken for granted, yet such an amazing tool to bring us back to an awareness of the present moment. It's easy to get caught in a half-life between the regrets of the past or the fears of the future, thoughts cleaved by clinging to one or the other. In the middle lies a state of healing calm, waiting with refreshment, ready to heal the sufferings of the past and soothe the anxious waiting future by bringing both into the pooling fold of the eternal now. In a culture driven quite mad with the incessant and aggressive longing to pull tomorrow into today ever faster, it is easy to lose awareness and mindfulness, forgetting the blessed and always present breath, the gift of all living beings that can bring us home. This is the blessing and great charity that Mary Vaughan is bringing into classrooms to children, reminding them of the precious gift of a calmer present. This is why I asked her to visit with me on Find the Good News. Mary brought a gift of incense and calming presence to the right round table, and I found her even manner of conversation very relaxing, and it put me at ease. Her sharing reminded me again that many times the right people are placed in just so particular positions, equipped with life experiences, training, and developed skills that uniquely align with the ailments of the world. As a father that is raising children in a world filled to burst with fear and anxiety signals, I always keep a keen eye out for the helpers that arrive, using their days as living, breathing beings to show us a better, healthier, happier way. As a yoga practitioner and instructor, she has found great value in mindfulness meditation exercises, and she puts right effort into sharing those lessons with children, the human race's great hope. She shows them the practical application of meditation, the value it brings to their young lives, and offers them a door to the precious present that is as near as their next inhalation. Breathe in, dear friends. Breathe out.
Wake up, it's morning. You're dreaming up a story. I can hear the way it's going, 'cause you're laughing in your sleep on the path to your deliverance, and a holy wall of light pouring through your window.
Old news, bad news, fake news. Sometimes you just want to shut it all down and get no news at all. With Find the Good News, I aim to change that by focusing on good people doing good work. I visit with artists, educators, civic and spiritual leaders, musicians, business owners, students, volunteers, and everyday citizens who are using their creativity, resources, and talents to bring hope and happiness to their corner of the world. In each episode, I dig into the hearts and minds of my extraordinary guests. We have street-level conversations about relatable things going on in their lives. Discover the critical life experiences that shape them, the perspectives that drive them, and the fundamental beliefs that are anchoring them to a path of goodness. There's a lot of news in the world. My name is Oran Parker, and I'm going to find the good.
And I love you just as well.
I think what you're doing with mindfulness in education is progressing because it is progressing us. It's moving us forward.
It is.
Yeah. Where does that start for you?
So I never thought I'd be a public school teacher.
Yeah.
And when my son was born later in life, I was a full-time yoga teacher in Austin, Texas. And I was like, what am I going to do? Now I have this child and I want to spend as much time as I can with him. So his first few years I could, and I had a choice. I was like, okay, with his school years, what am I going to do? So I taught English in college. That was my first official job out of a grad program. So I had teaching experience. I did some yoga teaching, which was totally different kind of feel altogether. So I was like, I don't know if I could teach kids. I'm so used to teaching adults.
Right.
So I went back to school for secondary education when he was about to be 4, and got my master's of arts in teaching. Got right in easily into a position. They had a position open for him, a place open for him in the school. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa. I grew up going to Catholic school.
Yeah.
And small environment.
Where did you grow up?
Here in Lake Charles.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went to St. Margaret's, went to St. Louis. So I was really taken aback by the amount of stress. The kid, I could feel it from the kids. I could feel it from the staff. There was a lot going on.
Yeah.
And
okay.
When I made that transition, right away, partly I did it for myself and the other half for the students in front of me. There was a moment about 6 months into teaching. It's like, okay, we need to stop. Just put your stuff aside for now. And if you're okay with closing your eyes, do it. If you don't want to, you don't have to close your eyes. And I guided them through 3 cycles of breath. Just take a deep breath, just like I would when I would start a yoga class.
Yeah.
And the immediate feedback from them was awe-inspiring.
Really?
Just to go silent together.
Yeah.
And be in that space and feel. Stop thinking and doing, but feel and be for a moment. And my classroom experience transformed, from that moment on. How we related to each other, how we could connect. And I lived in Massachusetts for a while, where the school district there has mindfulness in school programs. Well, I was there in 2006, 2007. So I started to research 6 years ago when I started public school, and said, okay, they're doing it here. They're doing it over here on the West Coast. Look at the UK, that kind of blew up. There was a New York Times not that long ago, an article, 350 schools now are actually doing research-based practice, observation of mindfulness techniques with students on their campuses.
Yeah.
And I'm going to release a big report at the end of the year. And when I was doing research, I was like, well, look, you got these great places like Harvard and Yale and Berkeley studying the effects on grades, on behavior, on staff. And so it's growing. And as an educator in Louisiana, I know I personally get a little tired of hearing us being last in categories.
Right.
When the students, that's not my experience in the classroom.
Yeah.
My students succeed. They're, for the most part, excited to learn and engaged. And I'm like, why do we keep falling there? You know? And I work with great teachers.
Yeah, so what's going on?
Yeah, and I visited other schools. I worked in LaGrange even, and, there's awesome things going on. So I was inspired just to do my part in what it would take to create a what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like this culture of, we're trained on how to observe bullying, for example.
Okay.
And this process on what we need to do to report it. And that got me thinking too, these past 6 years, like, okay, so how do you shift from focusing on the behavior you don't want?
Yeah, right, okay. Yeah.
And how about we focus on those behaviors that create connection, engagement.
Right.
It's amazing how engaged they are when we take 3 minutes, just 3 minutes, each class period to connect to the breath. Completely engaged in this. That we often will take for granted throughout the day.
Sure, yeah.
So the students are the ones who keep inspiring me. This year I've decided this is the first year that I got direct support from administrators. Over the summer they paid for me to take a Calm Classroom program that's designed specifically for high school. You get a little manual with instructions. If you've never done it, you can just read the script, to lead them through different techniques. Focused on the breath primarily. Focus on positive affirmations.
Right.
Using the breath.
Yeah.
They even send you a nice Woodstock chime to use.
Right. They actually do. They actually provide that as a resource. Okay, wow, that's surprising. I'm actually shocked.
Yeah. So it's created by a couple from the Northeast, who did it in their rooms and saw the transformation.
Yeah.
So this year is a little different in that I've got that direct support beyond just me and my class, me and my students. It's growing, and they notice the difference.
Yeah.
Miss Vaughan isn't sending kids to the office. What's going on in there?
Right.
And
why?
She does teach this one and that one and that one, and
right.
They're not getting sent out. So I've gotten very committed too. So there were times these past 5 years that I let busyness get in the way. I let the schedule, I let the emails with the tasks to add to the day. They just pile up certain times a year more than others. And I would, we don't have time for it today. But Miss Vaughan, can we breathe? Please, we'll breathe,
Yeah, on your own. Right. It wasn't a set time.
So this year, no. Like, no matter what.
Making time.
We're doing it. Yeah, it's a commitment.
And how long of a time are we talking about? I mean, 2.5
to 3 minutes.
Wow, such a small amount. I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way either. I mean, that's incredible that such a small amount. And how many of us adults are guilty of not having 2 or 3 minutes a day?
Yeah.
I mean, even I'm guilty. I mean, I'm a believer in that, and I'm still guilty because I'm part victim of the world, that we live in to some degree. And then the other part is just the awareness of going, okay, I have to, just like I take vitamins in the morning, I have to remind myself I've got to do these certain things or my mental health and wellness and peace all just kind of gets nibbled at.
Totally.
Till it's gone.
So there is a selfish aspect to it, because I teach 7 hours a day. I get to do it 7 times.
Right.
Where some of my students only see me, but they're already providing feedback that blows my mind about them doing it at home. Yeah. About how it transforms their relationship with their family members, their siblings. I've stopped fighting with my siblings. When
really?
I want
so they're resting back in their breath.
Yeah.
In these, that's really awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And,
that's really awesome.
Oh, yeah. Their feedback, because before I went to talk to Amy at KPLC a few weeks ago, I had them provide written feedback if they wanted. And many of them wanted to share. And it goes beyond what we do in the room.
Yeah.
And as a meditation practitioner, I know that. I know that my own personal practice extends way beyond those 10 minutes, those 15 minutes, those retreats even, it goes into how I can be in the world and be with my family. Mm-hmm. So watching the students go, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
And it's not out here, it's
right
here.
Inside yours. Yeah.
And so they go, wow.
Well, what an interesting component, because I have this conversation a lot with different people, and I think back on my education experience, being in high school, or what my children go through. And I say go through, I don't mean that in a bad way, but, they come home and I see things in them that I go, man, if we could only just change this, if there was a mental health component to education. And we teach children all these things. We teach them math, we teach them science, we teach them history, we teach them reading, we teach them writing. And somewhere in that, I think we maybe assume that the teacher is instilling life skills. And that does happen. I mean, I learned life skills from teachers. But we don't always know what those may be and to what, I guess, penetration they're actually having. Yeah. And then I thought back to junior high school, and I thought, well, we had health. And so in health, there was maybe like even a light sex education component. And I just after thinking about it all these years, and seeing, we're finally, I guess, having conversations in our society about mental health on the reg, now.
Yes.
Which is good. But we're dealing with the result and not the cause. So often, we're dealing with, 17, 18, 19, 30, 40-year-olds who have severe problems with coping, mental health issues. Suicide's a real problem in our society. And I think where is this coming from? There's the pace is faster. We're not making time for mental health. But where could we catch this at? And I think, school seems to be the right place. If we had a component like that, not just even talking about bullying, you mentioned bullying, that's a real problem. But we need, I've always felt, because I have had children who've been bullied, and I was bullied myself, we need more than just a bullying day or a bullying week. That doesn't do it. We need like an ongoing message, not just posters around the school saying be a buddy, not a bully. I mean, I'm not making fun of those efforts. They are efforts, but mindfulness, things like that, we need, I really do believe, some sort of component that those kids are getting on the reg. And I always wonder, and because I've listened to some conversations about mindfulness and meditation, because I've seen other schools do that, but there is a little bit of blowback sometimes from the religious aspect of it, because some people see that as a sneaky way to dethrone the religion of the land, if that was the right way to say that. Yeah. And I've seen that blowback a few times. It's because meditation or mindfulness gets tagged into, Eastern religions. Yes. Yeah. And it's like, oh, but no, we can't do that because it's associated with that. When really, if you take all the religious aspects out of it, it's just good, healthy practices.
Oh, yeah.
I guess where I'm getting at is I wonder what your thoughts are on that, about implementing this type of thing, not just in 3 minutes, but actually having classes. What do you think about that? Do you think that would be something that do you have feelings like that where you think?
Yeah. And going back to that religious element, possible blowback, I let that get in my way. That, I won't say it's a story because that assumes that it might not be true, but I think there's some of that, but because of what you mentioned about the level of the need for mental health to be addressed in our society, people feeling it, people suffering, people watching their loved ones suffer.
Right.
The positive part of this is that there's this waking up to, well, we got to take better care of ourselves and each other.
Yeah.
And how are we going to do that? Because we thought we were doing it by A, B, C. Mm-hmm. And it's often about doing, right? Doing things for somebody doing.
Right.
What if we tried just being?
Yeah.
And when I first began practicing mindfulness techniques and yoga in 1998, it was the yoga center was brand new in Lake Charles. Mm-hmm. And it was my mom's friend who ran that. I was at a point in grad school where I'm like, if I don't do something about my health now, I've already got real problems, and I appear on the outside to be a healthy, late 20s person here, but there's some real internal things going on. Mm-hmm. And when I took that first class and the movement was great and everything, but I was blown away by the last posture, Shavasana, the corpse pose where you just lay there.
Yeah.
And you just let go, and you just let go, and you just let go, and you just be. And it's a place of no labels, even ideas, beliefs, values, those, I can let those rest back there, those inherited ideas, the past, the future, let it go. There's so much more than just the physical body. And it was profound, so profound that after we did our little short closing meditation, I asked her, can I stay for the second class? Because I felt home. I felt at home.
Yeah.
I felt for the first time. And I grew up in a very healthy, loving household. All my needs were met. Emotionally, physically, psychologically, lots of support. And even in that, just trying to be an adult in America, and trying to achieve and trying to figure it all out.
Yeah.
It was chipping away at me.
Sure.
High blood pressure already.
Yeah.
The form of ulcers. No. So committing to that practice changed everything for me. And I think in education, when I think of the teachers when we're small, right? And they tell us, okay, sit still and listen. And I hadn't been taught how to do that until I went to a class and the teacher focused on that skill and what it felt like, and I could ask questions, and there's a real technique, there's a real learning around it.
Sure.
We're always listen, okay, be quiet, listen, and that is such a core of learning, to be able to be still, be open. In education, you hear this term, the open mindset. That's
Right.
The learning. Want a closed mindset, open, same thing, right? So, if I could bring a little bit of that, even if it's 3 students in a room of 22, this is great. That they're going, oh wow, I see how this applies to so much more than being in this English classroom.
Yeah.
You know, this is, I feel good, you know. I feel, one even explained, she said, Miss Vaughan, after we breathe, and it was only a couple of weeks into the school year, she's like, after we did our breathing, actually while we were doing it, she said, I started to get tears in my eyes. And she said, it felt so good because it wasn't sad. It wasn't mad like I'm so used to feeling. It just happened, and I felt good inside. But then immediately my mind started to go, oh my God, they're going to see me crying. She laughed about it. She had a sense of humor. And I said, yeah, you know, and I said, this is what it is. We're just feeling.
Yeah.
And then isn't that great that you noticed your mind went there?
Yeah. I mean, I love that you shared that, because I think about that quite often. I have no problem sharing tenderness with people. I think it's important to show vulnerability and feeling, just what you just said. I mean, sometimes I think that's hard to convey. I like that. I love that story because she didn't know what it was. And then the fact we so often equate tears with like sympathy or pain, but so often they're just feeling. I kind of had an experience like that the other morning. I was down on the Gulf Coast, and I love that feeling. It's like euphoria. It's like I almost don't even want to tag it. Just like that.
Yeah.
I go, this is just being encased in like a heart. That's all you become for a little bit, and you feel everything.
Yeah.
And it's a range of all that stuff, and tears come, you know, and it's a beautiful thing. You feel kind of like what you were describing, I guess, where the identity of yourself sort of begins to melt away, and these things that you're clinging to, that you've drawn to yourself. I always think of it like as an electromagnet at a junkyard. You know, you see these pictures in these junkyards where this big electromagnet goes down, and when it comes up, it's got like 3 old busted cars stuck to it. But if you turn the power off, it just drops those cars and swings free.
Yes, yeah.
And so I guess it's
analogy.
Kind of feels like that. Like, oh, I've let go of this junk that's just stuck to me for a minute.
Yes,
you know?
yeah.
We get charged up, and we draw things to ourselves that aren't necessarily us, and we begin to identify with them, and we can't feel. Or we're feeling, but it's all encased, I think, sometimes, like in this weird, coarse shell.
Yeah.
So that when a kid feels that, I see that in my son. I'll tell you a little story, and I don't want to derail our conversation, but we have this, me and my buddy coined it treasure wood. Like, I didn't have any trees in my yard, but I loved campfires. And so we had a space in our yard. So what I would do in the fall is I'd go ride around, and people who had old trees that they were just cutting things down, I would just take the wood they'd put on the side of the road. It wouldn't be great wood for like inside a house, but for a campfire, it was great. And so I would go home and split the wood and stack it up by our fire pit. Well, there was this one particular log that the way it was cut, it looked like a pair of boys' underwear, like on an underwear model, you know, like that area. And so we kept it and we sit on it, but it looks like literally like the 2 thighs and everything. It's kind of funny. So we call it boy shorts.
Yeah.
And so for years and years, boy shorts sat out there. But because it was, you know, it stays out in the weather, it eventually had become sort of moldy and rotten. And I guess in my mind, I hadn't attached like any feeling to it. You know, I put it there and we gave it a name. And so last year I was kind of going through some of the older wood, and I was like, it's really kind of time. I need to split this. It's rotten. And I started splitting it. And my little boy he walked out and he saw it, and he just started weeping. I mean, really like weeping. And I was like, oh God, what's wrong? And he was like, he couldn't really verbalize it, but it had to do with him. His memories of that fire were attached to that. Yeah. And those were like, it was this weird, tender moments for him. And it was good moments. It was like joy, I think, and happiness and being with his family. And I felt like I had killed something. I really did. Like I stopped immediately, and I was like, I'm so sorry. And I hugged him, and we cried together. And I realized what it was. His heart was open, and his life was there. Yeah. The things that mattered to him were in that it was almost like it become a sacred thing. Mm-hmm. And here I was just, recklessly dashing it. And I told my wife after that, I said, well, this is going to stay here till it dissolves on its own.
Yeah.
Because his life, it's a part of his life. He sees there's more in this old log than for him, and it's not tangible. I can't quantify it by our normal standards,
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess what I'm saying all that to mean that I think it's valuable to allow kids to experience feeling like that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And teach them to carry that not just in their childhood but into their adult life. So often I think it gets beat out of us as kids.
And I'm happy, I know it. I'm helpless.
Sorry for interrupting the conversation, but I have something I need to tell you about. You may or may not know this, but this podcast is produced in the city of Sulphur, Louisiana, one of the sister cities that make up Southwest Louisiana. All of my childhood memories are wrapped up in the city of Sulphur. It's my home, and it's been a good home for most of my life. There is a growing diversity of unique businesses, services, and events in Sulphur, each with a rich and colorful story to tell about their particular place in this little jewel on the west side of the Calcasieu River. My mission is to promote good news, to put a positive signal out in the world. That's why my team at Parker Brand Creative Services has created the new brand, Sulphur Today. Here's how it works. Post your Sulphur event, service, photos, videos, or information using the hashtag Sulphur Today. That's it. My team and I will scan and curate those posts through the social media platforms we've put in place. Before you make your post, just type hashtag. That's a £sign for the folks that don't know what a hashtag is. And the words Sulphur Today with no space. My team at Parker Brand is monitoring this tag right now, and they're ready to create positive digital curb appeal for our city by sharing all the very best Sulphur has to offer through the Sulphur Today social media pages. As the Sulphur Today project grows, we will be scheduling interviews and video sessions with businesses, events, and services so they can tell their story of Sulphur Today in a series of ongoing micro-documentaries. Look for the eye-catching Sulphur Today sign when you're out and about. And be ready, we may be stopping by to visit you for a photo op. And don't forget to stop by the Parker Brand Creative Services studio in Sulphur to grab a Sulphur Today decal for your vehicle or business. We want people visiting our area to know that they can find all the wonderful things we have to offer with ease and be a part of our history by utilizing the Sulphur Today pages or by searching the Sulphur Today hashtag. Do you want to help us tell the story of Sulphur Today? Here's what I need you to do right now. Visit and like the Facebook page at facebook.com/Sulphur Today. And be sure to share positive Sulphur information and post often using the hashtag Sulphur Today. Now, back to Find the Good News.
I love you just as well.
Well, yeah, and that bullying issue that so much attention has been put on, we think, what do they need? And what do we all need? Mm-hmm. And it's really the same. For teenagers especially, because I love to study, read, I'm not a scientist by any means, but I love studies of brain changes, especially in the teen years, and the effects, good things, how that affects the brain. So I'm always I love pictures of it, articles that I can understand. So studying the brain changes so much in the teen years. And at the core, though, we all have this one longing, this one need, and it is from the heart, and it is about connecting to one another. So I think from the perspective of someone who may be lashing out, in an aggressive way, they have the same needs, as someone who may be trying to hide in the corner, not get called on. They want to be seen for who they really are.
Yeah.
They also want to understand and know who they really are.
Yeah. So
providing moments like that we're all the same. When we stop and breathe, we're breathing the same air. It is inspiration. It is, we let it in, we let it go, we share it.
Right.
It's everywhere.
Inspiration. You're right. That's right.
And so if we can soften, or around those hearts of those who are just, for whatever reason, trauma, etc., that creates behaviors that, I see them more and more as I spend time with teens, like what they would truly need, and it could be done just like that.
Yeah.
I'll see it, students who want to kind of push the power struggle, and when they realize really quick that I'm not playing that with them,
yeah,
we soften and we look at each other, for who you are.
Right.
Like, I see you, you see me.
Yeah,
and
all that other stuff just starts to melt away. You see the common thing that binds you versus the things that divide you.
Yeah, so they don't do those behaviors in the room, or if they happen, they fizzle out very quickly.
Yeah,
with the mindful practices, students are starting to, they'll honor their differences. This is great, to be a unique individual. But then that also feeling where we're the same.
Yeah.
And back to that spiritual aspect, that potential backlash from someone who looks at this as, some kind of, a religious-based practice,
right.
Which we know, no, you got a body, you breathe.
Right.
It's about bringing that awareness, slowing down.
Right.
Taking care of the self, taking care of each other, so this not bound by any religion or dogma.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, I let that, I won't say fear, but almost a hesitation of, maybe I shouldn't be doing this because I don't want anyone to misinterpret that.
Right.
And when I finally let that go, I just, I let it go and started asking.
Yeah.
Or started putting it out there, like, asking my principal about, hey, I'm interested in taking this course this summer. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Okay. Applying for the grant, becoming a finalist, and getting the feedback that of the grant proposals from teachers.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you.
By the way.
They were like, this one's different.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. And this is a big group of very a traditional group of beautiful Southern ladies,
right,
that are going, and I made sure to explain these are the benefits. There's nothing. What is happening is very simple. It's about us getting quiet, listening inwardly, and feeling the breath.
Well, I mean, in a world that has become ever increasingly devoid of quiet, we need that. We know we need it.
Yeah.
And we do. I mean, I sense it all the time in myself. I mean, the word I've used, unfortunately, I kind of caught myself at a journaling exercise recently with some other people, is that I steal my quiet time from places that I think no one wants. The morning. Because while it's like while others sleep, I can go steal that time. And the word I was using was steal, and I'm trying to change that in myself to where I don't think of it that way, as stealing the quiet. I need to reframe that for myself, because I know I need it, but I feel desperate by the time I get to it. I do take the time, but it's out of, I guess, it's like a feeling of being in the desert and thirsty. And I'm sure, and what's the reason I say it that way is because I imagine that's what probably a lot of us, not just children, feel like. Desperate, but we don't know what we're desperate for. And then when we get that quiet, it's like, oh, this was what it was.
Yes, yeah.
This is all it was, is a place. Somebody years ago, we went camping out in Kisatchie, back when you could actually go out and camp out at Longleaf Vista. Have you ever been out there?
Yes.
So you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
I mean, you can really get away. But we were camping out there, and it was night, and you could see the see the stars so clear, but we heard a train, and you feel like you're isolated out there. And my friend that was with me said, wow, even out here, you just can't escape the noises of the modern world, even way out here.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. He said to me, he goes, how far away from the modern world do you have to get to where you don't actually hear a sign or see a sign of the noise? And I've thought about that question almost, it's over 20 years ago, but I've had that thought, that little conversation has come up all the time, even in here. You saw me, I've got a soundboard up there to dampen it. And even now in here, even though you try to create a space, you're still gonna be jarred by the noises and the pace of the world. I'm sure my watch will beep, or we're surrounded by things that take us away from ourselves almost.
And
we don't even realize, I think, consciously that's happening to us, that we're being robbed of the present moment and drawn into the future or remaining in the past. And then it's causing physical harm and mental harm to us. The very world we've built, literally.
Right. This week, the focus of our practice is called listening to sound in silence. And I have an air conditioner. Yesterday was running, and I have this some machine that sucks the humidity out the room, and it's like a fan, and it's always going. So when we did this practice, before we started, because I was introducing it yesterday, was the first time we practiced, and I said, okay, when I say listen to silence, watch what your mind's going to do. It's going to want to go, it might have thoughts like, well, there is no silence, because that thing's running and that thing's running, and I can hear so-and-so breathing. And I said, but keep watching what your mind does. And what it does is it seeks out stillness, and it feels for that moment, mindfully practicing it, that even with these things, there's that stillness and that peaceful quiet. And then training them to, okay, now listen to sound without judging it, without labeling it. Just let your ears open and pick up vibration. And just be with sound.
Be with it.
And I told them, I said, grew up, I still love to go to concerts, but I went to a lot, for my 20s, 30s, and my hearing's a little affected by now. But I used to love that just being in this crowd, and us all enjoying, music that we love. Great feeling. And the older I get, I'll find myself, if I do go into these large groups, at first feeling very sensitive and vulnerable, and feeling like, I don't know if I can do this. And that's a practice that helps me. It's like, just be with the sound. Just be with the number of people. Just stop and feel it for a minute.
Right.
Like, without the mind, the mind wanted to say, this is not good. Maybe you should back out. What if you get claustrophobic?
Yeah, right.
So, this is all good. Good, thank you. How about I just stop and listen?
Yeah.
And even in what seems chaotic, that stillness can be found. So.
I think that's a good practice, because I was having a conversation like this with a friend years ago. We were talking about when you hear negative speech, or angry speech, or someone's barking at you, or just barking at a crowd, or trying to incite people to maybe even a hate or anything like that. I said it's easy to get charged up by that stuff, because you're hinging on the meaning behind the words. But I said, if you were at an airport and you heard an airplane screeching overhead, you don't have a charged emotion about that. You hear the sound, and it's maybe abrasive, but you don't get charged. You just go, oh, that's just an annoying sound. We kind of got into this talk about, I said, we can do that with negative speech sometimes too. When we're hearing words that we don't like from people, and then we start to have a feeling about the word, we can actually put ourselves in a place where we can go, well, this is just some sound that's coming out of a person, And if I don't get charged about it, I can let that float by easier than if I get caught in the minutia of every little detail and then attach it to them. And then your mind starts. What did I hear the other day? Is that the brain's just a connection machine.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just going to start making these connections. And the more I focus, the more connections my brain makes. And there we go. I got a charged up electromagnet again, pulling junk in. You know, and making you feel heavy. And it's hard to do that, though. I mean, that takes actual effort and real work.
Mm-hmm. It does, yeah.
Do you ever have kids that want more?
Mm-hmm. Yes. There was, I guess it was a few weeks ago, someone walked in and she was like, oh, God, yes, like Miss Vaughan's class, I can breathe now. And she was like, can we do an extended one?
Oh, wow.
And then, you know, sometimes they love the counting ratio breathing, you know, and I'll give them the real, you know, like, look, this provides a sense of groundedness, a feeling of being balanced. It soothes the nervous system. So I'll give them all the, you know, benefits so they know what's the point in doing this. And they love the, like if it's inhale for 4, pause for 2, exhale for 4, pause for 2. So we start pretty small, 4-2, 4-2, or 4-4. We even do it a longer pause 1 week. And one whispered, like when we finished and the bell went off, she's like, would it be okay if like we did like 6 count, you know? She's like, I feel like I could breathe longer. It's like, I know you can, and this is just a starting point for anybody, you know, to get in there and feel, because again, you don't want to strain the breath in any way. So they'll often ask for more of parts or longer. So yeah, it's cute.
I love that we're talking about the breath. I don't know that we've talked about yoga and meditation and mindfulness and awareness and different subjects like that on the show, but I don't know that I've ever sat with anybody and actually talked about the breath. And you said something in the beginning, and there may be a lot of people who know this, and for those, and you know, maybe some that don't. That's why I want to talk about it. Is you said in spirit, inspiration, and there are a lot of people that I have conversations with that don't really realize that that's really talking about the breath. You know, the spirit being a breath, and to be inspired means to be in spirit, and to you know. So often we just think of breathing as this physical action that we take, but you're talking about it in a whole new way, and that we literally have almost the means to our salvation right there built into our very being that gives us our life, you know. When I think about that, even from certain biblical verses, when you discover those little nuggets, you know, in spirit we live, move, and have our being, you know, and that's quite literally not just in some sort of metaphysical way. That's quite literally just tangibly something that we can say right now. Between you and I, we're sharing the same air. We're breathing together. And how beautiful it is to make that bridge right there and stop. And for me, it's always helped to go, oh, I'm actually immersed, right? I'm not just separate from spirit. I'm just now when I breathed, I took it in. And it's in me. It's in the oxygen in my blood. It's in my brain. And that's cellular.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just such an incredible thing. And
one student, just example, a teen with the cells, she gave us a real mini biology lesson. She was like, okay, so I love science, but I just want to say, like, it makes me think when we're breathing how I see so many people, like, I know, like, they don't breathe at all. They're always, like, anxious and stuff. And I think, oh, my God, like, they're not getting enough breath. So no wonder people get sick and stuff. And she was like, you know, the cells need those nutrients. So when we take deep breaths, like, we're getting those nutrients everywhere, and if we don't, then we don't get enough, and no wonder so many people are getting sick. And I was just like, from the mouths of babes.
Oh, it's beautiful. I even think about that when I talking about the breath and the value of it. I think it's tied directly to your work, and that's so easy, like, you know, talking about labels, liberal, environmentalist, you know, tree hugger, all that kind of stuff. I think sometimes you say, oh, I hate that they put a parking, or they're cutting down these trees. They're going to put a shopping mall there. And then you hear, yeah, but the economy. right? And you go, yeah, but the trees. And they're like, oh, whatever, trees, there's trees everywhere. I literally think about the breath. I mean, we have a synergy and a bond to these trees. We really do. We're living with them. We're breathing together. And it's so easy to take things like that for granted and to forget that it's not just about us. We're breathing with these things that are here with us to provide spirit.
Yes.
You know, and so when people have these deep emotional and heartfelt connections to the environment, I think sometimes it's so easy to think they just want to poo-poo on our parade.
Yeah.
You know, they want to make our life hard. But when people say those things, I tend to go, you know, you need to scratch a little deeper, because they really might honestly see something that most of us aren't seeing. They might really have a true spiritual bond with these trees and these plants, because they're in spirit together. They're breathing together. You know?
Yeah. Like, I would never label myself as a level of a tree hugger of what we might think of when we say this.
Yeah.
But, you know, I notice when I just pay attention to how I feel, you know, over there kind of by the casinos and Target, I always loved that driving by that area with the windows down when it was very wooded and thick before the roundabout was built. And driving areas like that, and on Sallier at the end on the way to the port where, you know, they used to have just on both sides of the road. And you could just feel like, oh, so refreshing. Oh, it feels good. Feel the air. It's like 10 degrees cooler here, you know, and it just felt good. And I used to walk there in Sallier in the summertime. It's the only way I could walk in the summer. And anyway, when I took that roundabout not that long ago, and I was like, oh my God.
What's happened?
I literally, my son was in the back seat, and he's like, what's wrong? I said, they cut the trees down. You know, they cleared that big corner. And I even surprised myself with that reaction. I like felt it very physically, like just this missing, you know, like I just lost something. And, you know, and again, I've lost a lot. I lost those moments of, wow, you know, they're getting so few and far between, that refreshing feeling of, and that cooler air that it provides. You know, the shade and the majesty, you know, they were so tall and, and, you know, we're connected to all that.
I mean, it's so easy.
I was like, felt stabbed, and I was like, oh.
Right. Well, we don't preserve maybe. Well, I mean, hey, I'm not going to say that I'm not. If that's a label, I there's a little joke. My family knows this, but when I was younger, especially, I used to love to go to the park and lay under a tree and just kind of cover myself up with leaves and just kind of get lost in the moment, you know. And then when hours would go by, and I guess at that time I didn't realize it, but it was a form of meditation, you know.
Staring at blades of grass.
And really
that cool
zooming
grass
in
the fall. Oh yeah.
I mean, and those are, for me, and a lot of other people, I think, I guess I wouldn't have put a label on it, but now I see that and I go, I guess whatever the label is, I guess just stick it on there. I don't know if I care anymore, you know, but the breath is of high value. I mean, when you meet somebody who has trouble breathing, even, you know, and you realize, oh, I take this for granted. You know, to have this ability to take a deep breath without pain and to breathe out. You may have heard on some of the shows, I've been for a little while now practicing a form of meditation called Tonglen. Have you heard of that?
Tell me.
So it's sort of a visual.
I heard you talking about it, but
in a nutshell, I guess the cliff notes is that it's like a visualization and a breathing meditation exercise, but it's like you start with yourself essentially, and I would explain it like a series of growing rings around your life. So you start with yourself, actually, sort of imagining yourself and all of the things about yourself that maybe trouble you. And that's the easy way to say, you know, your anxieties, your fears, your worries, the things you've done, the things you regret, all the gravity of the long tail of your life that you just have. We all have one, like this, gosh, I regret these things or these pains or old memories. And you kind of sit across from yourself in your mind, and you see that version of yourself, and then you begin to breathe. And when you breathe in, you visualize almost, and a lot of people call it a black smoke. Like you visualize that you're breathing all this stuff off of yourself into yourself, off of this version of you that has all these pains. You take it in, but inside your heart is like a white light, sort of a lightning chamber. So when you breathe in all of that, it goes into your heart, and it's transformed in your heart into light. And so when you breathe out, you exhale, the light comes out as your breath, and then you watch yourself begin to breathe in the white light and be cleansed. It's a way to begin to love yourself and heal yourself. But then after you do that, you move the rings into other people in your life, and then eventually your community, and then your country, and then the world, and you sort of try to, I guess, expand your feeling in your heart and begin to just love, you know. And I love it because it's tied directly to the breath. It's like they call Tong Lin means taking and receiving and then giving away. It's like you're taking it away and then you're giving it back in a better way. So I found it to be a good exercise. When people actually now, we live in a thoughts and prayers culture online where it's like thoughts and prayers. When people ask me to pray now for someone, that's typically what I find myself sinking into, even if it's just for, like you said, a few minutes. You just go back to the breath and do a Tonglen exercise with a person. If someone recently someone I know has lung cancer, and they said, will you pray for them? And I just felt myself now dropping into that state for a moment and saying, okay, I'm going to do this exercise and breathe life into them, into their lungs, into their pain. I don't know. It's just an exercise in peace, honestly.
It's beautiful.
And do you ever find yourself with the children wanting to go further? Like you go, I could go take them to like a next level.
Yeah, and actually the calm classroom technique that I got trained in that was specific to the teens, it does have 3 stages. And so we're already into the second stage. It's a 17-week program, and then you could start over or build on that. So there, it's already it is like walking a path into taking this tool, building on that tool, shifting that experience into this. So they're already in this sense of taking that connection to the breath into how powerful it can be to help them with focus. So we're on the focus section of 3.
Nice.
And they're practiced different. Like this week's the silence and sound. They did the repetition, inhale the words inwardly, I, exhale, am calm. And by the end of the week, towards the end of the week, they're asking about using their own words. And I'm like, yes,
mantra.
Totally, yes.
Yeah, nice.
And they get really quiet for that. The more I find in teens, they have such awesome brains. They're developing that frontal lobe, and it's just like, so this is great. It's just like downloading, all that good learning and wisdom. So that repetition of giving them something to focus on more than just a breath is super powerful. The counting of the breath, mantra repetition, they're just I had them at one point. They were visualizing, they were doing a ratio of breathing, and they were visualizing the box or the triangle, as you inhale, drawing that line up, as you exhale,
nice.
And it would get so quiet.
That's so good. I love that. I do love that.
And they love that.
I'm going to incorporate that. I've never done that. I build, for me, what helps me relax, and I've kind of talked about this before, is I build like a cabin with a series of little rooms and things. But what's interesting over time is how it changes.
Oh yeah.
But that building that triangle, I like that because for me, I could use that as like a door, like that's the key to get in. Does that make sense?
Yes,
like, okay, I got
absolutely.
I don't get to go in until I've done this so many times.
Yeah.
And I'm happy, I know it. I'm helped.
I hate to pause the program, but I want to ask you something. Did you know that you can help me and my team at Parker Brand Creative Services grow the Find the Good News signal? For less than a fancy cup of coffee, you can become an Early Risers Club patron on our Patreon page. What's Patreon? Well, it's a way for creators to fund their projects by pooling support from those really passionate people that believe in what they're doing. Do you believe in what we're doing with Find the Good News? I hope you do. We believe that there's already enough negative news in the world, even right here at home, and that good people doing good works deserve a platform to speak from too. That's why we created Find the Good News, and we believe in that simple mission. Maybe you believe in it too. If you do believe in finding and sharing good news, then head over to our Patreon page right now or check out the link in the show description. For a commitment of $3.33 a month, you can join the Early Risers Club of Find the Good News Patreon supporters and get access to the B-Sides, a patrons-only podcast with the crew behind Find the Good News, Parker Brand Creative Services. Each time we level up, the Patreon rewards will get bigger. If you're tired of old news, bad news, and fake news, help support Find the Good News at patreon.com/findthegoodnews. That's patreon.com/findthegoodnews. Now, back to the episode.
I love you just as well.
I wanted to tell you this. I've been thinking it the whole time I'm talking to you. You know, sometimes we don't really fully know the impact we're having on people until way later.
Yeah.
And sometimes we never know. You know, they don't get a chance to tell you. But on one of the episodes I got to visit with my high school speech teacher. And you know, she really was the first person that ever introduced me to what I would call meditation. And she did an exercise with a red ball. And we talked about it on the show and how in speech she gave us that exercise. You know, now we're in speech class, right? I mean, it has nothing to do with meditation or a red ball, but she taught us things like that within the framework of the class. And I love that. I told her that when I visited with her. I said that exercise with that ball, very much like your triangle, you know, she would have us envision a ball, you know, in an empty sort of void, and then we would wait till we could see the textures of this red ball, you know, in front of us, and then she would have us move it away and then bring it back and then move it left and right and up and down, and then have us change its color, you know, and then eventually, over after you do all these different motions, you would push it away till you couldn't see it anymore, and that was the end of the meditation.
Wow, that's a neat one.
It was really neat, and I didn't realize until many years later what that was she was teaching us. And I told her that. I said, you know, you didn't realize maybe at that moment that you were affecting me and changing my life, but all these years later, I still go back to that thing that I learned in the classroom. So I say that to mean like you're doing that with all of these children. They're going to come back to that, and they're going to be, you know, like me, 45 years old, going back and going, I remember this, and I still, and who knows, that could be like a platform that they build so many other things on.
That's the teaching grant that I'm hoping to get. What one of the parts of the plan is to build a mindful student alliance, where we've got 3, and they're all on board with this.
Incredible.
Where we got 3 or 4 students represented from each grade level, 9 through 12, and then because there's so many practices that are connected. I've got at least 4 workbooks from various mindful groups that work with corporations and education. And so I've got these workbooks that are just sitting in there. It's like, I can't wait for the time, because they're just for teens, you know, and it's written in a way where it's for them. So that alliance would be able to meet once a week, go deeper together, and then brainstorm creative ways they could bring that out of the classroom.
That's great.
And into first our campus culture, maybe even beyond. So So let it be more student led. Well, the thing is, I'm seeing mindfulness at work, in all areas. For first responders, this training is starting to blow up. Really is it's so available. I can drive down to Texas and do, I can't wait to do it. I'm going to do it soon, maybe in the summer, Warriors at Ease, where it's just about working mindfully with veterans. But the connections I'm making, all the states and even beyond. I mean, it's in the world. It's not just it's not located to a certain area. For a while there was like a little pocket here working, a little pocket there. So the tendrils are starting to spread.
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing my students in front of me and going, they may be sitting, 10 years from now at a corporate meeting going, hey, so we're going to do a professional development, mindfulness at work. They may be leading that. They
right.
may. It's beyond a yoga classroom, a Buddhist temple,
right.
A Catholic Bible study group.
Yeah.
These are practices that are having very positive benefits on the whole person.
Yeah.
The kids that are in front of me today, this is going to be part of their life in some way.
That's right.
Yeah.
This has been, and what's funny is if there's ever is any resistance or blowback, I always go back to, we've known about these types of things in other forms, like when it's the count to 10. I mean, we tell each other, like, okay, before you take an action, count to 10, take a breath, take a deep breath, or blowing in a bag whenever you're having anxiety. We've done this stuff. I even remember, I don't remember what happened, but I had a stomach pain when I was a kid. And I can remember my dad, I was laying on my back in really a lot of pain. And he was like, okay, I know it hurts, but just take a deep breath. And I can still hear him telling me, now put your mind on something else. And he would talk me through like something completely different. And the pain, granted, the pain wasn't gone, but my fixation on it was. And so those little exercises like that, we've been shown the way. I mean, we just don't. We need somebody to remind us that we have to. I mean, honestly, just breathe for a second. How often do you see someone just holding they're so tight. I mean, I'm guilty too, and I
oh God, me too.
I have to just remind myself. I go, okay, I need to just go blow this out.
Yeah.
Just blow this stuff out of myself, and breathe deep and then blow out again. Get in a new cycle, a natural cycle again. That, for me, that I have to get into some natural rhythms to get back to what I would consider wholeness or health. I just going to watch the sun come up. I'm waiting on it. I love that feeling of just, it's just coming. It's going to be here, and I'll just wait and just let it do what it's going to do. And I breathe, and it feels better than being on the ticking of a clock.
Oh yeah. Yes.
I can see the kids in your class definitely benefiting from that. I don't know. I guess I know as somebody who had a teacher that just, even if that was all she taught, which she taught us so much more through that speech class, but even if that was the only thing I got, it was a tool that I remember going on a retreat not too many years ago and having an anxious feeling. I wasn't having a good retreat, and I was just I didn't want to be there. I was having my negative thoughts were getting charged up. And I was trying everything that I thought I knew to do. We can think highly of all our little things we've learned. I was like, oh, I know how to deal with stress and anxiety. I'll just do these things. And, nothing, I couldn't get out of it. I'd lay down and then thoughts would come back. And I was like, I'm just having a hard time letting these guests leave the guest house. And I went back to that little red ball. All those years later, 40-something years old. And I was like, okay, red ball. I did the red ball thing. And it worked, and I went to sleep. I needed that. I got out of that negative state.
Yes, yeah.
So many problems in the world I find come from that, of just reactions, without taking a minute or three, to do a breathing exercise. I don't know. It's impressive. I know when my wife, she shared, the KPLC story with me, and we were already friends on Facebook, but I didn't really have a full understanding of what it was you were doing, but you went on KPLC and she was like, do you know about this? I would love this if Eben had this. That's our son. If he had this in his school, and he would benefit from it. And I was like, yeah. I said, I guess I didn't really fully understand, but so I started doing my little cyber research. And I was like, oh, wow, this is an incredible thing you're doing. I just really commend you for... Why do it? That's the question. I mean, I know the why of it, and I know what your hopes are, but like, why do something instead of nothing? Because you could just do yoga for yourself and bring the practices into your life, and that could just affect your home. I mean, why go a little further? What inspires you?
Well, realizing that I can't just do yoga in my compartment. You know, I think there's a point at everybody's practice that it extends out. You know, it happens naturally pretty much, but two things, you know, the fact that how the practice has changed me in the way that I can be in the world. It kind of is a natural extension of that it goes beyond, you know, a 45-minute practice here or an hour practice there. Then teacher burnout is real, you know. And watching, I mean, I've been on that end, so stressed out, you know, snapping at somebody because I haven't stopped to slow Down, and not feeling good about that later, you know.
Right.
Having those thoughts like maybe I should go do something else now, you know. And the real commitment, for me too, is, you know, this is about commitment in my personal experience, because I've shifted careers, it seems like every 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I heard that recently from somebody else. Every 4 or 5 years, I make a shift.
Yeah. And so I was hitting this 5th year and really thinking hard, what else could I do instead of this? Because, you know, I don't know, stressed out. And when I stop in the kids, you know, that's number one. Like, I see their faces like, okay, I'm going to be with them. There is something super special and powerful about being with them. Then I'm like, oh, here's that 5-year mark. You know, I'm starting my 6th year now. How about I take a deeper commitment dive rather than go, you know, let me go commit elsewhere.
Right.
And, you know, for me too, it's been about marrying those two aspects of myself, because I do teach yoga also. It's my second job in a way, and that I could actually earn some money from that's helpful, and I get to practice and talk to people about it, and it's great.
Right.
So, like, I really want to unionize, you know, these aspects of this system of education, and the many things that aren't enjoyable for me about it, the tasks that aren't fun. There's a lot of them.
You want to transform it.
Yeah. So
instead of just going, I get it.
Instead of pushing it.
That's right, because we tend to do that with life. We're like, I've kind of run the wheels off of this thing.
Yeah.
Let me go get a new car. And instead, you're like, hey, how can I can put life and put some more energy into this and maybe make it a better vehicle.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
And then, you know, part of all this too is the vision that the grant would help with is extending this to staff, having some time to be able to train them, let them feel it for themselves,
right,
and gifting them with that opportunity of hey, because it's so important for them to take care of themselves. So important. I mean, all of us. You know. And for them to have the opportunity to be able to feel what that is like.
You're right.
Yeah, because it does change everything.
That's interesting how things like that are almost designed, or they almost have it in their very nature to be shared. And I find that. I mean, and I have that compulsion too. I think I call it a compulsion. That's probably not a positive word, but like this feeling of this should be given away. Like if you find something of value, you want to give it to somebody else.
Yes.
You know, sharing it.
And I tell friends all the time, you know, that I wasn't born a millionaire, you know. I wasn't born with riches galore, but there is one area in life that I feel like the wealthiest woman on earth is that I have been able to work with the greatest teachers and sit in front of them eye to eye, from the ones that I had in school to the ones who people's name, they know Deepak Chopra and these people, you know, that I was able to serve in a real capacity. And there's been this times of my life where it was just this flow, you know, profound teacher after profound teacher after profound teacher. And I feel like I cannot not share that wealth. This is my wealth, you know, and that this is the gift, and thank you. You know, wow, and it continues. You know, the connection to those teachers continue, and meeting them through the decades, and it's just incredible. So I've been gifted with that ability to sit at the feet of these teachers and learn so much, and that has helped shape how I live my life and my practice and how I am in the world. And now it's time to, you know, give back. And I've been giving back, but now not so much in this one little road or that one little road. Now it's like kind of like, let's jump in the ocean together and see what happens. You know?
I love that. Right.
It is. That's what it feels like. You know, because I was dipping my toe in at school for a while, you know, going, maybe somebody will fuss at me for doing this. Right. Maybe somebody won't approve. And it's like, you know what?
Right.
No, I can't.
It's very
Let's
interesting.
just dive in there.
That's hard to do. It is, because I mean, I'm relating what you're saying to something that I struggle with, and I just talked about it again with another guest. But I think it's because it's something I think that's going to need to change with me, and it's that I've always had this sense of, I hate the word. I don't hate the word, I guess. I wish there was another word, but the one that always comes to mind is like, there's my higher self. And it's the higher idea of me. And there's all these components and elements, these good things that I see as goodness. And then there's the me that engages with the world. You know, the me that doesn't do the things that my higher self knows needs to be done. And the me that doesn't say the thing that my higher self wants to say. The me that doesn't love the way my higher self wants to love. You know, the me that still falls into old patterns that plug in really nicely with our society, but my higher self says that doesn't fit. Just break it. It's okay. And so I find the veil between those two me's getting thinner and thinner.
Hallelujah. Huh?
Yeah, and so like I feel like a day is
right
coming where one's going to pierce the other, and it'll just be like this big pouring out. And once that little membrane has been pierced, and that fluid begins to pour from higher, I'm almost like between dimensions. It feels like literally,
totally.
like there's something going to pierce that place where this higher me is yelling to come through this sort of thin skin. And then it's just going to be an ocean, just like you said. It's just going to pour out, and I won't be able to. I won't. That me that's worried about plugging in and having to do is just going to dissolve. Yeah. And so right now, I think I feel sort of like I call it like a type of stress. And I don't know. It's like a vibration. There's just a disruption there for me, and I find that I'm feelings of frustration with reconciling those two things. Does that make sense?
Oh God, yes.
So you talking about so playing in the ocean. It's that, yes. I feel free when I hear you say that, because there's a part of me that wants to go play in that ocean and just dive in all the way.
And there's days I jump back out of the ocean and I stand on the shore and go, wait, you know, I mean, we do that. We go back and forth, and how much can that take is what I'm wondering with myself. Is, you know, I have only one good eardrum. My other one's was ruptured when I was a kid, and I think of it that way, like how much can that membrane that's holding those two things from becoming one
take, how many more years of vibration and stress between the two before it's just like, it's done. We're going to be one, one person. I don't know. That's kind of a strange way to say it, but
I'm following you though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this has really been really good.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. So where do you see this going for you? Like, what's your big vision? Like, do you have one?
So I'm definitely taking it a step at a time. I feel that that's the only way I can for it to be unfolding the way it is. Because as I mentioned, having that resistance before to how it might be accepted or not. Now dropping that and just let me walk it. And then, I mean, people like you are going, or like signposts along the path, like, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, he said yes. She said yes. He said yes.
Yeah.
And I'm saying yes, and I'm saying yes, and I'm singing yes, inwardly.
Right.
And so where I'm seeing it going is that, definitely from what I'm doing in the classroom, I want to see extend out beyond that, those other staff members that this resonates with naturally. They do it because they feel it, and they understand, through experience is the only way. Like, okay, this is how we take care of each other. I listen to the complaints, both ends, students and teachers, and my own complaints, and a lot of it is about, like, I'm hearing the core of it. It's like they're feeling separate. They're not feeling connected. I feel it too sometimes, and and then getting a taste of that connection, that oneness. So I see, potentially this can go into the district, this can go into the state, this can go out from there. There's model states that are doing it now. Massachusetts, air pockets in California. There's already structures in place, and they love research-based backed information, and it's there, and it keeps growing and growing. So, in my role with it, I don't know. I am totally open to seeing how it evolves.
Yeah.
I've been working on a book. It's called Lessons from the Field, and it's about bringing spirit and soul back into any classroom. So it's a book for any kind of teacher.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
And,
okay.
And I'm thinking parents. I'm thinking anyone who, how to bring spirit and soul. And so, I'm into my second year of really kind of charting these chunks come at me, and then I'll put it away for a while, do other things and work and blog and parent and all that, and then another chunk will come to me. So I'm working with that to share that, and I want to go back to the core, the teachers who inspired me, who connected with me. I mean, they've made all the difference. They made all this possible, And I guess when I talk about my wealth being that experience, it, really another word for it is it's just the grace of it. So I'll continue to let that guide me.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I love teaching English. I love to read. I love to write. I love to guide people in that process. So doing that, that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I'll just keep going.
Yeah. No, I love that. I like what you're saying there about, for the classroom, but I could see that being something where just people can learn to infuse it in other places. I mean, that's something that I've listening to you talk, it reminds me again of some of the struggles that I find myself facing. I mean, and I don't like using the word struggle, but it's true. It's like there's a little tug of war.
Yeah, there's that tension, and
for me, it's we're in branding and advertising, which is highly secular. I mean, it's directly tied to the ebb and flow of all the systems that are out there in society. So, what I have found is that I finally am being honest with myself, and I'm not a secular thinker. But I'm in an industry that is the marriage of secular thinking and creativity.
Yeah.
And those two things do not really, they work. You can make them work, but they honestly are not together. They don't really belong together really well. For me, anyway, I find. And so I am trying my best to infuse my new relationships in that field with a healthier dose of non-secular thinking, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think this show, honestly, has been kind of a part of that. It's like it's out front now, and it's not on the back end. It was a back end idea that has now become a front-facing idea. And so, on one hand, I put it out there because it reframes everything. It's like, yes, we still do this, but it's being reframed by this new front-facing message that we are a team of feelers. And we think, but we want people to feel, and that's how we're going to approach our projects going forward. You know, if we're going to communicate with people, we want to communicate healthy, positive life, and truth. And feeling that heart, like that kid. We want to make people feel through messages what that child in your classroom felt. Like, why am I tearing up?
Yes,
because you're feeling.
You're feeling it.
And we're not trying to. We don't want you to feel something that's inauthentic. We want to be able to tell the truth and make you feel.
Yeah. Well, I'm just looking at some of your work that's behind you. Like, I feel that vibration. Like,
well,
it comes through. It definitely does. The energy, and that's the beauty of doing things mindfully. Anything, is where, when you're in that open space and you're creating and you're sharing, it does come through. That catches not just my eye, but something else too.
Beyond just, that's good to hear.
Not just a preference. I like it. It's like, there's a lot of energy to that work, as a writing teacher, teaching students to bring, even in the boring literary analysis essay world, you can bring a lot of life and energy, so, and that's often where the aha moments are, where, it's okay for me to talk about that in here and make that connection and maybe open up with a personal story. I could do that. Well, yeah.
I see.
What makes you want to read that first sentence and then the next sentence? And it's like, and they start to connect. The successful ones who make that connection, they're like, oh yeah, so if I'm feeling it, they're going to feel it.
Right. Someone's going to have the same vibration as you, and when they
totally I'm like, you put a little bit of some oomph in it, and then you wonder that like I'll anonymously post sometimes as an example, and it might have been an essay that got an A, but it's one that does like grab us and engage us, and as students see that, they're like, oh, yeah, I didn't know I could do that.
That's right. I'm and on that note, it's interesting. I'm having a hard time getting through a book that I've been reading for a long time called Conjectures of a Guilty Bystander by Thomas Merton. He's one of my favorite writers.
That's how you posted that quote.
Well, I can't get through it, not because it's not good, but it's because of the way he writes. It's so filled with feeling and truth, and I don't mean truth in the sense that it's the truth for everybody. I mean, he's writing his truth, and he's very in touch with his inner workings and thoughts. I can't get through it because I'll read 2 or 3 sentences and I have to stop because it's so, I'll find myself it gets right into my core. And I go, I'm not doing his spirit, honestly, justice, what's the spirit in his words, if I don't stop and let myself just fully feel what this is doing inside of me, because these words do that to me. They really get in there and kick around, you know, and shake things up and dig real deep. And I go, man, that's why I can't finish that book. It looks like I've had it for years and years, because it's literally looking that way, because it is that way. It's just like page after page. I'll go, no, I'm just going to chill for a little bit and wait, because I don't know, it's infused with his breath almost, I guess. That's what it feels like. It's honest. It's truth and honesty from a human being who was a contemplative person, you know?
Yes. I've never been through a whole book of his, but I get that, because even being very familiar with chunks and quotes that I've seen here and there, like, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what happens when a person, you know, living in a hermitage like he did, and but still being engaged with the world, taking, I guess it was an ebb and flow is what I sense, is that he wanted to be engaged. He knew it was important to share, like you. You know, he knows it's important to give it away, to share what's going on. These senses, that there was that deep sense that this is of value. And, and you know, there was no arrogance in it. It was just, it's meant, these words are meant to be shared.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you're doing that. That's exactly what you're doing, is exactly what the show's about. I mean, it's good people doing good works. And I love to know that you're out there doing that.
And I'm happy, I know it.
This episode's Fishing for Goodies Fishbowl sponsor is Brimstone Museum and Henning Cultural Center in Sulphur, Louisiana. I don't know what you look for when you travel, but one of the things I look for when I'm putting together my itinerary is a unique museum or gallery in the city I'm traveling to. I do this almost every time I go to a new city, but if I'm being honest, I'm guilty of not always doing that very thing right here at home in Sulphur, Louisiana. That's really a shame, because we have one of the most interesting, historically relevant, and culturally rich corners in any city in the country, about 2 minutes from where I'm sitting right now. I'm talking about the Brimstone Museum and Henning Cultural Center. Have you ever really thought about why our city is named Sulphur? They've got a permanent exhibit on the history of the sulfur industry that answers that simple question and more. You really get a full scope of just how important the sulfur mining industry was to the development of Southwest Louisiana and the impact it had on the rest of the world. Yes, the rest of the world. On the same property, right next door to the museum, is the Henning Cultural Center, presenting some of the most interesting, modern, and culturally relevant local art shows I've ever seen. My dear friend Tom Trahan and the Brimstone Historical Society have really worked hard to give us this treasure, and it's a multifaceted jewel that I plan to take advantage of more often. You don't have to wonder what their hours are, or how to get there, or what shows are coming up. Just go to brimstonemuseum.org like I did, and subscribe to their mailing list right there on the homepage. That's brimstonemuseum.org. Tom will make sure you start getting the announcements for each and every new show at the gallery. But you don't have to wait for the mail to arrive to enjoy this historical local treasure. You don't have to be guilty, like me, of overlooking a local wonder that conveniently sits next to the Grove, one of the most beautiful walking parks in Southwest Louisiana. Drop in and say hi to Tom for me. Tour the museum and center, and make sure to tell Tom that you heard about Brimstone Museum on Find the Good News. Now, let's take that dive in the fishbowl. So you do listen to this show?
Oh, yes.
So you know about that sticker bowl right there, the fish bowl? Well, it's time for this fish bowl, yeah. So you know how it works. You draw 3 questions. I can give you a little bit of a hint, or you can just dive right in. Looks like you're going to dive right into the ocean. The big cards are would you rather cards.
Yes.
The little papers are people that have submitted questions, and the regular size cards are just some really good, deep, contemplative questions, kind of get you thinking. Some people do one of each. A lot of people have been doing. I'm more of the paper kind of guy. I like the little
I know, the paper feels good. All right. 3 questions.
I'm always excited to hear what people draw.
All right, I need to read it.
Yeah, you read them.
I don't have my glasses.
Need some readers?
Okay, here we go. No, I got it.
Got it.
Have you ever had a health scare? I think the biggest health scare I had was what drove me to go walk in that yoga center was that everything at once all of a sudden didn't feel right. And that my biggest health scares in life have been about the family members I've loved and the pain of watching them suffer. Having at times been able to limit their impact because of their health. Beautiful ladies in my family. And so when I started to experience my own, which in the scheme of things I guess wasn't major, but they could have been chronic.
Sure. And just stick with you for the remainder of
Yes. Yeah. And as I saw happen to some of my my grandmother, my great grandmother, and it was like, no.
Like corrosive, really, almost.
Yes,
like it's you're still I mean, not to totally derail you, but I think of it as like an old battery in a radio. It's like, that's been in there too long and it still works, but now there's the acid from the batteries kind of like left a mark inside of this device, right? I mean, I feel like that's kind of what can happen with blood pressure and ulcers and stress. It just sort of becomes corrosive, and you might not fully ever bounce back 100% from that type of stuff.
Yes, so that that's my
well, I mean,
health scare.
that's cumulative. I mean, you get enough of those types of things, and then all of a sudden all it takes is one bad thing add to that. I mean, a bad knee. I mean, really, or anything, you fall and break a hip. I mean, you see these things happen to people where you're going, well, they had these 3 things that didn't get dealt with, and then all of a sudden it just starts to topple.
Oh, yeah. Yes, yeah. Next?
Yeah.
In an argument, do you have to have the last word?
You're laughing.
Depends on who I'm arguing with.
And what it's about.
Yeah, right.
Did you think of an argument? Did one pop in your head?
Yes.
Oh, really?
I'm not proud of some of my past, how I've behaved in some of my past relationships with significant others, with men, and I've had an awesome example too. Just it's kind of fun in a way. It's banter, but then I notice that it always goes into something that's a little. We're taking ourselves too seriously now.
Yeah.
But I like the last word in a fun way. In a fun argument way.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah, and so I noticed, and I'm giggling too. I think I did it with my son. My son is 9, and that's a fun age, and they're all fun ages. But
yeah,
he's talking back to me sassy, and so I said something sassy back, and then he said something sassy. I said, "Who's going to be sassier here?"
Yeah,
because I think I could beat you. So. And then we laughed.
Yeah, social media can be like that. The last word, that definitely promotes last word culture. I mean, it's like that.
I try to stay out of that, definitely, because,
I really do, honestly, I try to make an honest effort to have healthy conversations online. And I would say it's probably mostly successful, but there are the occasions where you just go, wow, this is just it devolves. When it devolves quickly. It starts out as a minor disagreement, and then a link war, and then name calling, and then just gets ugly. Yeah. And then you're blocking.
Yes.
And that's usually the trail for me. And I've tried to learn to go with social media, especially with people I don't know, and I'm like, and you see it happening. I go, look, it's probably just best to let go.
Yeah.
Let it go. Don't worry about it and walk away, because move on. Move past it. Yeah. It's tough, though. It's tough. There's a compulsion there.
Yeah.
That's a good question, actually.
It is good. Yeah. There's definitely been times I want the last word. Okay. So this is, okay. Services that should exist but don't. I like this card. It's cute.
I love those cards.
Yeah, that's great.
That's a good question, actually.
Yes. Services that should exist but don't.
That's interesting, actually. Well, I mean, that kind of gets into the school system, honestly. It's kind of relevant.
Yeah. they're starting to exist. The ones that, I mean, I've thought for the past couple of decades for sure. You know, like I'm watching yoga therapy, for example, that there are more and more hospitals. I have a friend, in fact, who does this in Austin as a yoga therapist, that she supports doctors. You know, so in cases where people are in recovery, you know, they don't need the intense physical therapy, but they do need some therapy. I don't know if that's the best way to explain, but I mean, yoga therapy is also a huge field, huge topic, huge growth. Services that don't exist.
One thing, then, listening to you say that, is I hadn't thought this before, but I think we have seen things change, and partly because you used to, if you wanted to create a service, right? I mean, you got to it's going to cost you something to create the service, whether it's good or bad or whatever it is. But if it's a positive thing, you know, that's maybe alternative to any degree, you had to market it somehow. You had to let people know. And used to, that was very difficult. That took a lot of pushing, pulling, and hauling. You had to hire people to help you get your stuff together and get a message out there and then try to get it to people. But the world's changed so much because we all have these communication tools now, and we can really let people know about positive services, which I think in the positive side of that has made room for things to flourish, right? Things that maybe, services that maybe wouldn't have had an opportunity because there was no communication vehicle. But now people can go, well, you know, hey, I've got this thing that I think there's a need. I can put that out there, and now people can get in touch with me, you know?
Yeah. In fact, I'll say this out loud. I'm excited to say this out loud because you asked about it, and I kind of tiptoed into this direct space with it. But this service that don't exist is inspiring me. So when you ask, like, where do I see this going? One thing about a service I would love to provide I think at first definitely in the district, because there's many other awesome yoga teachers in our community that blew my mind, and they would
yoga's really blown up in
love
our
to area. You know, we already have, I've got a list of their names, you know, anyone who's wants to team up on this in the future. So services that don't exist right now in our parish that I would love to see is that in the school system, send that yoga teacher. I got a friend in the Northeast that does this, and he posts the most adorable videos. His job is that he goes from school to school. Like on Mondays he's at this school, on Tuesdays he's at this school. So he's got a school a week, and he has a special time just for about an hour where they do yoga. They goof off. It looks fun too. Like, you know, so they play around with yoga. He works with little ones, elementary and middle school mostly, and then they do mindfulness practices, from whether it's a walking meditation to a seated, you know. So, and he'll play around with that. So I would love that service for our schools for sure, where send a yoga teacher to
gotcha. Yeah,
and they do. I mean, there's physical education teachers. I know at our school, she'll weave in some yoga, just the posturing part, and that's great. But assemblies, for example, you know, that would be a service definitely. One of my biggest inspirations, I know when I was a student, I loved when people come for like an assembly and be like, whoa.
Yeah, right.
You know, I get so inspired. Right. And they're doing something that, you know, I don't do, or, you know, I hadn't thought of in that context. What's that awesome Zydeco guy? Sean.
Oh, Ardwan.
Yeah. And he did one at our high school a couple years ago.
Too,
Whoa. Yeah. I mean, it was mind-blowing awesome.
Yeah. He's got a good energy. I love going to see him perform. And just, I was blown away the first time I saw him. Yeah.
So, you know, I'd love to see that, where mindful practices can be, you know, that kind of direct call service. Hey.
Yeah, right, right. Well, I mean, there you go. I mean, that's how things get started. I mean, people have an idea and they go, hey, you know, there's this need, and you know, we have ideas like that sometimes where you go, man, this is going to happen sooner or later. Someone's going to do this.
Inevitably.
There will be room for it to bloom, you know, kind of pod out and grow. And then you'll see, well, like, okay, even, I mean, in our market, you see that happening a lot. I mean, you'll see little things. You go, oh, we have, there's somebody's got a juice store. Yeah. And then all of a sudden there's 10 juice stores.
And I love how that, you know, there's food trucks involved, the vegan food truck. And, you know, she's going to have a full-blown restaurant soon.
Oh, sure. It takes somebody to just pierce the veil and go across the line.
Farmers markets, there's little seed ideas growing. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you do see it. You see things work in other communities. I mean, every community's different, but human beings still have the same longings and the same needs. I mean, from place to place for the most part. Yeah. Well, that was actually fun. You did awesome. Those are great questions. They were right in your right inside of your zone. Yeah. There is a new thing. It's not new anymore, but it's last few episodes we've done it is this box right here. That wooden box. It's called Better You in a Box. And so this is really, you can take it as a personal challenge, but these are challenge cards. And so what I've had each guest do is read them, and then it's really a challenge for the audience, you know, or maybe even us, you know, something that maybe we haven't done, or just a way to put something new in your life.
I like this box. Okay. Oh, it's got the heart.
She pulled the card with a red heart on it.
Ask your taxi or ride-sharing driver their story.
Ah, have you ever done that?
No.
Really?
And I don't do a lot of taxi ride-sharing, but it's inspiring me to say, you know, I don't ask enough people their story.
Isn't that something when we learn people's stories?
Oh, God, yeah.
God, this show has blown my mind. I realize that's the humanity that's we can overlook so easily when we start to hear what people's lives have been like and why they do what they do. You know, that happened to me. I was in Colorado, and I had dropped my daughter off, and I had to take a ride share thing to the bus stop, and it was a little bit of a drive, and so we got to talk. And I don't know if I necessarily heard his story, but he did tell me things about the area, and we chit-chatted a little bit, and it was nice. It was nice because, you know, he drives around, he talks to a lot of people, and he was just very good at that. And it made me realize I've been in other ride shares where it wasn't like that. And I thought it's awesome when you get somebody who has that kind of that dynamic to them, you know, and they're a lot of layers, and they're comfortable to talk to. It's a gift. It really is. It made me realize that he might see himself as just a driver, but he was imparting so much knowledge about the area. You know,
awesome.
Sort of an ambassador.
Yeah, because I say this, you know, this could be a lot of contacts. Ask your server at a restaurant. Yeah. You know. Yeah. Even if you don't have time to hear a whole story, you know, ask them something about themselves. Like,
well, you know, that's
I mean, I
true.
do little things here and there, of course, but I'm like, I mean, there's been opportunities I could have heard somebody's story. I need to take that more.
Yeah. You ever had that feeling like you go, there's something going on there?
Yeah.
Like there's something there. That's happened to me. There's these guys that come around our area here in Sulphur, and they raise money for it's like a men's program to help them kick addiction, basically. I mean, it's a Christian ministry. Yeah. And they basically, if somebody's really, they're on the side of the road even, and they're I mean, a lot of these stories I have heard have been like, hey, this was like 2 hours later and I'd have been dead, you know. And so they're that kind of group. They'll come give you a bed, shower, food, meal, but you go in the program, you know, essentially. But these guys, every one of them has been through the program, and now they're out fundraising for the program. Wow. The first time I ever met one, they came here, they kind of told me about it. In fact, I have their papers stuck up on the board right there. I sat and talked to that guy for an hour and a half, and his story was hard to hear. I mean, it was full of pain and full of sorrow. Yeah. And we cried together. I mean, just randomly sitting here with a person I don't know, but over banana bread, you know. But what I realized after talking to him was that each one of these guys has a story that's like this, but a different version. And so now when they come by, it's always a different guy. And every time they come in, I always ask them to come in. And used to, I would just, there's that compulsion to go, okay, here, let me have the thing you're selling and I'll give you the money. Mm-hmm. But with those guys, I know I've learned that lesson. It's like, come on in and just tell me your story. And they're glad to share it because they know their story matters to other people. And I have heard the most transformative stories, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I think in I guess that's where, I guess religion kind of comes into play. There's so many, in our culture, it's either one or the other these days. I hear people that are either against it or for it. And even some people that they're not against it, but they have a lot of hang-ups about it. Mm-hmm. But what I like is whenever I can get out of the way of both of those conversations, just talk to the human being, and you see like, hey, whether you agree with everything about what they believe, it's literally pulling them like up out of the mud and helping them get their life back. So there's this hope element. Yeah, I like those kind of stories. I love hearing stories of people that find their way out of trouble, you know, or something pulls them back from the brink.
Oh yeah,
and shows them that they're valued again. That they're even in all of their mess.
Oh yeah,
and troubles and pains that they have value.
Yes, yeah, very powerful.
There is one more question. It's on the back of that yellow coffee mug, which belongs to you now.
Oh, sweet. This one? This question facing me? Mm-hmm. Did anything good happen today? Well, this has been awesome.
Has it?
Heck yeah.
Good.
I mean, I woke up, I was so ready to come. Laughing with my son about who could be sassier. That was good. And then my cat made me laugh this morning because, she sleeps as much as possible. Yeah. She's kind of a fat cat.
We have one of those.
Yeah. We got her. She had surgery. She had a thyroid issue and a bad infection, and it was draining down. And anyway, so we got her neck was all shaved and from post surgery. And he's like, yeah, she's probably gonna have thyroid issue, but she'll be fine. So she sleeps a lot.
Oh
and
yeah.
Her playing is like. Maybe swipe at this one time and then roll over and go back to sleep.
Right.
So the good thing she did today was she actually, I guess because of the cooler weather, it caught me off guard. I could hear her running down the hall on the wood floors, like her plop, 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 plop. And then she slid onto the carpet, rolled over onto her back with just her belly, flat on her back, belly exposed, and just looked at everybody upside down.
Yeah.
And that was adorable. So that was a good thing.
It's funny. I never would have thought myself a cat person, but we have a couple of cats, and their personalities are just so different, and they're funny. And I've got one of those big lazy cats too.
Oh yeah.
She basically, her activity is walking from one spot over to 10 feet over and then going back to lay down again.
It's like, eat, use the bathroom, sleep.
Yep. At night when I get home and when I get my shoes off, she comes over, and she's not really a lap cat for me. She won't sit on my lap, but she comes over and she scratches her ears on my toes, and so that's like her nightly routine is like, come get some toe.
Cute.
So for anybody that wants to learn more about what you're doing and you, what's the best way? What do you encourage people to do to find you and connect with you? What do you prefer?
Well, I've got through social media. That's often really direct. I do have a Facebook page, Mary Vaughan. It's VAUGHAN.
Okay.
AN at the end. So I love friends and having through there and having conversations through there. I meet a lot of awesome people. For a while there, I held maintained this sort of complaining about this is wrong with social media. This is wrong.
Right.
And then I just started to focus on the good.
Yeah.
And it's been a powerful tool. So they could find me there. I do have a website, a blog, and anytime I have classes and services, news that comes up, and it's premascension.com. That's PREM, and then the word ascension, ASCENSION, altogether.com. And because I've got workshops that are going to come up coming New Year's Eve actually, and then a couple in the spring for sure in the works. So they can always email me too at school, mary.vaughan@cpsb.org, if they want to talk about definitely the specifics to how it's working in schools.
Yeah. Well, thank you, honestly, for coming and giving us your time.
You made my day.
This is great.
This was a good thing, too.
I can't wait to share this with people. I really do. I mean, I know you have plenty of opportunity to share your message with folks, but I do appreciate you coming and taking a little deep dive and get into it.
Yes, thank you.
It's good news.
And I love you just as well.
Thanks for listening to my conversation with Mary Vaughan. If you enjoyed our conversation, you can help me share more like it by becoming an early riser patron at patreon.com/findthegoodnews. You can always share this episode or leave a kind review as well. I thank you for your support, but most of all, I thank you for pressing play.